At the end of the year, who's going to be the starter?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're downloading your podcast, this show is always free, and I always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Miller Moss, Jaden Mayaba. After the spring game, Coach Riley was very clear. He stated unequivocally, Miller Moss would be the starting quarterback if USC was playing this weekend. Without a doubt. He said Miller is quarterback one, and it's by a wide margin. I mean, he really put it out there. I left no question about it. He talked about how Moss came out, going back, thinking about the spring, first couple of practices, Miller came out and it was like, it wasn't his best practices. But after that, things kind of changed, and Miller kind of just picked up where he was expected to pick up. This is what Coach Riley said. After that, he was really lights out the entire spring, just steady, really good decisions, and he played at a high level. And he's certainly ahead right now. There's not a question about that. Now, does Jaden Mayaba, does he have a chance to close that gap? Where are we at today? April 22nd, 23rd, when you're watching this episode of Locked On USC. Fall camp opens up beginning of August. What was that, 5-6 months? Sure, he's got time. What he has working to his advantage. If you're Jaden, you're looking right. Well, you know what? I'm younger, got more years ahead of me. He has more game experience than Miller. He started at, when he was at UNLV, Miller, he had to wait his turn. Jaden also has some, he's got great athletic skills. And I also think, the longer he's hanging around with the team and he's, becomes more comfortable and more confident, I think all that'll come. You'll start to see, Lincoln Riley change the language about, closing the gap where Jaden is in relation to Miller. This is what Coach Riley said about Jaden Mayaba after spring camp. Jaden is improving rapidly as he learns it, and I think it's going to continue to provide great competition in the room. He, like a lot of the new guys, came out of the blocks really strong. He had a little bit of a lull in the middle of it. Then I thought he finished the spring really strong. End quote. So where Miller has the advantage, obviously, his knowledge of the offense, right? He's got those leadership skills to go along with being, pretty good quarterback as well. And so that's what puts him clearly in the lead. Lincoln Riley wanted, he was throwing it out there, competition staying open. So that's going to continue. Now, here's where I'm not going with this in this first segment. I really doubt it. Just making this a conversational piece. I doubt that Coach Riley is looking at 2024 as a throwaway season. Okay. But however, let's consider the reality. What coaches say out loud, in other words, their outlook on the season, what they anticipate, not going to put any limit on this team, kind of like what Lincoln Riley did when he came in and took over. USC became an 11-win season, an 11-win team. It's not so much what they say out loud; it's what they don't say out loud. And that's basically what they're hoping doesn't happen. Okay, those two things are usually going on in their head at the same time. The coach speak, what we hear, and then what they're not saying. Saying, all right, kind of like you got the angel on one side, the devil on the other, and you're playing tug of war with the head coach. So my question is this: how long do you think Coach Riley would wait to make a change if he feels like the season isn't going according to plan, like you had hoped, like the outlook? So let me lay it out for you. Game 1, USC versus LSU. Again, this is for conversation, and because I highly doubt it's going to happen. But what if Miller goes flat when it's time to kick off the season against LSU? So let's just say in the event that happens, playing devil's advocate here, he just totally blows a gasket and just kind of wrecks the car. Would that be the opening for Coach Riley to say, all right, you know what? Let's get the Mayava movement going. Let's get that car started. Here's what's happening. I'll set it up. You're coming back from Las Vegas. Okay. You've got Utah State at home. Perfect place to break in the new quarterback. Then you've got the bye week. And then you go to Ann Arbor. It kind of sets up Riley to make the move if his vibe, I'm using finger quotes, if all of a sudden that vibe changes. Remember, if you were watching the episode of Locked on USC yesterday, my everydayers heard this. We're excited about the room. All those guys are going to continue to evolve. We're gonna as we grade spring, as we go through summer, as we get into fall camp, guys aren't going to be the same players they were today. If that happens, we'll certainly lean in on the right guy, and we've got several guys in the room that we feel can do it. He's referring to Miller and Jaden and Jake Jensen, and let's not forget, preferred walk-on Gage Roy. Now, that's what we're looking at on the surface, what we can say out loud. Now, behind the scenes, after the game, I heard the whispers. What if Mayab is the guy to lead USC? There's this, I don't know, kind of raised eyebrow fascination with Mayaba's upside because of his arm, his size. He's 6'4", right? He's got that arm strength. He's got that athleticism. That's what everyone's going, compared to Miller Moss, when they're executing that run pass option, what does Jaden bring to the table? In other words, his ceiling, they want to see how high it is. I think everybody kind of knows where Miller Moss's ceiling is athletically. It's not a knock. Miller can do what he needs to be done on the field. He can use his legs. But when you're comparing athleticism, I think everyone's going to check the box off for Jaden compared to Miller. Because it comes down to this for USC fans. They haven't had too many 6'4" quarterbacks with those types of athletic abilities like Jaden possesses. So I get the intrigue. I really do. However, the position, play quarterback requires more than a strong arm or the legs to extend the play when duty calls. The starting quarterback position requires that leadership quality. And that's what separates Moss from Mayava. Lincoln Riley said so. When Moss was told he was going to be the starting quarterback, well, the media let him know because that's what Lincoln Riley said after the game. This is how Miller responded. He said, look, I don't think my mentality or approach has been based on Coach Riley saying I'm the starting quarterback or not. My job is to lead this team. Okay. That's the answer that I think Coach Riley was looking for. It's the right answer to give at the time. He's not going to go, yeah, I'm the starter. What of it? To my listeners, my viewers, don't forget, I see the comments. One of my listeners said there's a lot to be excited about. Plenty of upside across the board. Defensive back, wide receiver, offensive line. Those guys stood out. But I don't think Mark Culkin is able to give an honest take on Miller Moss for whatever reason. There needs to be an open quarterback battle, to be honest. That a bowl game was a showcase for the wide receivers there, because there were plenty of poor throws and bailouts by the wide receiver. As if Miller is a returning starter with 10 wins. Hope he's the best quarterback to throw a ball at USC. We'll see. Okay. Like I said, some are hoping that Maava is the guy because of what Miller did. They're saying, well, it was just one game. It's the Holiday Bowl. Here you've got somebody who saw the game as the wide receivers were bailing out Miller. He had some poor throws. I'm not saying he didn't have some bad throws, but I think it's kind of funny that people think it's easy to sit as long as Miller did, wait for his turn, be the starting quarterback, take over for a Heisman winner, and then all of a sudden now the bar is set so high that all of a sudden Miller, he's not even allowed to have some poor throws. And because Maava had what my response to that would be, Maava had how many interceptions as a starter at UNLV? Just saying. Don't forget, Coach Riley said the quarterback role is going to be different in 2024 at USC. Less of that, going off script, ad-libbing, because that's kind of what Caleb Williams did last year. Miller isn't going to mess that up or get replaced because he makes a bad throw. I think everybody needs to understand that, okay? Miller is, I think, exactly what Lincoln Riley wants this year, especially until all the pieces kind of fall into place. This is a different team. So, yes, I can give a fair assessment. I'm just wondering if the fans out there don't have a little bit of a bias themselves. Fair question, right? Just saying. Just asking. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seats before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show you your total up front. That way you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds, 2 taps. Trojans fans, I got to remind you, I got to ask you, do you have your tickets for the game in Vegas yet against LSU? Just talked about it a second ago. GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And the GameTime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It's playoff time in the NBA, NHL, baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So after the game, what was your impression of the Trojans offensive line? I'm going to talk about the transfer portal. This segment is going to segue right into it, so stick around. But because USC needs some assistance from the transfer portal at the offensive tackle positions, before we get to that, after you watched the spring game, what was your impression? Offensive line specifically. Personally, I like the way the O-line. I like the way they move their feet. I think they won the battle in the trenches. They were pushing forward more often than they were, going backwards. Granted, I already mentioned it on yesterday's episode. Bear Alexander wasn't playing. He wasn't in the game, just saying. He probably makes a difference. Look, as far as the offensive line, they got their hands on their defender. They didn't have any bad beats. The interior looked good. You have Elijah Page, Mason Murphy, Justin Ta'uanu, Tobias Raymond. Look, those are your 4 tackles. I thought that the tackles handled USC's defensive ends with relative ease. But I guess the question is that a good thing? Some people might say, you know what, USC's defensive ends, you know what, they didn't do a whole lot last year. So it's great. USC's offensive line can handle them. Does that mean everybody else is going to be able to handle them as well? So I get that playing defensive line in the spring game is difficult because you're not really allowed to get after the quarterback. So do you still think Riley needs, well, not just Lincoln Riley, but do you think Riley and his offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, Josh Henson, do they need a couple of offensive tackles out of the transfer portal? I mentioned the 4 guys. Okay, Elijah Page, Mason Murphy, those are your starters. Behind them, you got Justin and you got Tobias Raymond. So again, are you good with who they're bringing to the Big Ten dance? You got 4 guys that they recruited. Well, they didn't recruit Mason Murphy, but you get my point. 4 guys out of the high school recruiting ranks. Those are your 2 deep. After the game, Riley said and again, you listen to the show, he talked about the vibe of the team. The thing I'm most excited about, the vibe of this team. I really like the team. I like the coaching. I like the way they interact with each other. I like the way they compete with each other. I guess the future of all that, what happens here in the next 8-9 months, will determine if we say it's a positive or not, but it feels different. The team feels a little different than any of the teams that we've had right now at this point. I'm excited about that. You know, I kind of made light of it yesterday and said, you know, it's because Lincoln Riley finally has a team that with the defense, bring a smile to his face. On a serious note, he was talking. That was his answer about going and having to use the transfer portal. So I'm going to question the way USC is using the transfer portal in the next segment. But are you good with the offensive line's makeup right now across the board? Gino Quinones is going to be returning for fall camp. He should be healthy enough to participate. So now automatically you've got more interior line help. And those guys played really well in the game as well. Whether it was Emmanuel Prignon, Amos Talalele, Alani Noah, Cooper Lovelace, Jonah Monheim, Killian O'Connor, the interior, those guys functioned really well. I'm more focused on the outside, the bookends. So again, I mentioned Gino returns. With his return, that allows Cooper Lovelace to be the emergency offensive tackle if needed. That's a solution you can put on the table. You got Mason Murphy and Raymond on the right side. So you've got experience with Mason, and then behind him, you've got second-year player Tobias Raymond. On the left side, the blind side, you've got Elijah Page, rock solid. No issues there. He looked really good. I think he's ready to assume the mantle, take over. Behind him, you've got a couple of true freshmen. I mentioned Justin Ta'uanu, and then you also have Kololo Taga. It's a young left side, no matter how you slice it. So that's the scary part if you're Coach Riley and Coach Henson. Page can handle the chore, but what if, for whatever reason, you need to go to the super freshman? Now, if that's the case, does now all of a sudden, do you move Mason Murphy over to the left side? You're now going to, obviously, Tobias Raymond moves up to starter right tackle. That's another solution. I think the answer to my question is, USC needs to add depth at the offensive tackle, as well as players who can play inside on the defensive line. They could use another wide receiver or two. So the segue question into the next segment. why isn't anyone standing in line right now? You know, who doesn't want to play at wide receiver U? Who doesn't want to get coached up by Coach Henderson and Coach Nua on the defensive line? I'm wondering if, who they're looking for at the offensive tackle position in the transfer portal. Is there somebody in there right now that they like? Maybe there's not. Maybe they're okay with what they have. Again, the what if is, heaven forbid, Elijah Page, for whatever reason, isn't in the game. I think you know where I'm going with this. Is that word that starts with an I. We hope it doesn't happen. That's why I'm not using the word. Lincoln Riley talked about, for every one guy that wants to leave USC, there would be 100 guys in line wanting to transfer. Where are they? We're going to talk about that in the next segment. I've been told I'm a competitive person. The more you get to know me, you're going to agree. I think you kind of get it. You see my frustration when I can't even say a name correctly. I hate that. Okay, well, I got that competitive side. You figured it out. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded 150 million times. It's a great twist on the classic Monopoly game where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big time money. But you know what? Here's the best part. My favorite part. I get to mess with my friends. I can charge them rent on those properties. And you know what else I can do? Because I own the properties, I got access to go inside, go into their vaults, hit up their, take their money. That's what I want to do. And the leaderboards, I know if I'm in the lead or not. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments, and you too can earn huge rewards. So get in the game, join your friends, download Monopoly Go now for free you can get it at the App Store or the Google Play. All right, let's just get right into this transfer portal thing. I was talking about, are you good with the offensive line, the way, with who they have, and where they have it? I think the answer is USC still needs to hit the transfer portal. But where else? Okay. So far, USC has lost nickelback, Tre'quon Fegans, Isaiah Rakes, nose tackle, which they needed. He came over to USC via the transfer portal. And oh, by the way, he's apparently committed to Auburn. And USC also lost Jason Zandamela to the transfer portal, early enrollee, offensive center. Well, those guys are gone. So far, this is what USC's replaced. They replaced their nickelback. They got Greedy Vance from Florida State. Over the weekend, when USC was playing their spring game, USC hosted Greedy Vance. He's from Florida State, and he's 5'11", 170 pounds. He began his career at Louisville, and then he transferred to FSU ahead of the 2022 season. When he was there, he recorded 34 tackles, 5 pass deflections, 4 interceptions. So not bad. And he's going to have one more year of eligibility left. Now, over the weekend, after he got home, he made his commitment to USC. So USC replaced their nickel with another nickel. Here's what I find, I guess, ironic about this whole transfer portal thing. And the position where Coach Lynn and Belk already have options, they're already there on the roster. In my opinion, the position that was in the least need of being filled immediately was probably the nickel spot. Compared to their needs at defensive line, wide receiver, offensive line, I'm thinking, you know what? If you want to play nickel, we want you, but we're going to put you at the back of the line. I got these other guys I got to take care of first. Especially after the way the secondary looked. I'm just wondering out loud, why was that the first spot filled? Maybe they see their roster differently than I do. They probably know their roster better than I do, but it just seemed a little A little weird coming off of the way that the secondary played in that game, in the spring game. So again, for those 100 guys, for every one that wants to leave USC, where are they? I'm not making fun of Lincoln Riley, but to me, this is getting a little odd, right? As I said, I fully admit the staff, they probably have a plan in place. But again, where are those defensive tackles? Where are those offensive tackles? Those are the positions of need, especially when depth is the issue. If you're an elite guy who plays defense and you can stuff the run, I would say you come to USC, you're probably going to play a lot. I know you're going to get good coaching. These are the positions that Coach Riley said they were going to address with the transfer portal. So, as Judge Smales from Caddyshack would say, well, we're waiting, right? It feels like everyone that USC was going in on, waiting on in line for, they're not lining up or they're going somewhere else. Demonic Williams, he's still uncommitted. I've told you where USC kind of stands with that situation. It's still fluid. But, now the other guy, you had former Louisville and former Arizona State defensive lineman, Jermaine Lole. Well, he just committed to Oklahoma. Didn't I say that would be kind of a kick in the nuts? It didn't hurt as bad, but you know what? USC wanted him. That's 6'3", that's 310 pounds, a guy who's got 141 tackles under his belt, 12 and a half sacks, 25 tackles for loss, and he's done that in 39 games. USC could use that. Okay, here's another guy. I didn't think it was going to happen, but former USC Trojan and current UCLA Bruin is going to remain a UCLA Bruin, Jay Toya. He's going to get paid enough to stay there. I know some of you were thinking, well, maybe he'll come back to USC. Well, UCLA actually outbid Texas. So right now, USC is kind of, we'll say they're 0-2 because Demonic hasn't committed anywhere. But Lole, strike one. Jay Toya, I guess, check swing, strike two. What's going on here? Did Coach Henney and Coach Newell fart in a room all of a sudden? Or is USC just not paying the fair market price? I don't know. Here's where we're at. I love Kobe Pepe. Carlon Jones is on the way. Nate Clifton's already here. That's your interior guys. Sure, you could probably move Anthony Lucas inside. So where are the guys? I get it. There's still a week left. And hey, I got to keep reminding myself, so I'll remind you. Bear Alexander was a last-second addition last year with the spring transfer portal. Maybe that's the plan. Wait for those elite guys to jump in. What if they don't? What if there are no elite guys? Is USC going to circle back and pay Demonic Williams and keep him away from LSU? Because I think that's kind of where he's leaning right now. I mean, could you imagine lining up if he is lining up against USC in game one? Wouldn't that be a storyline? Guy from LA has a chance to come home, get coached up by Coach Henney, and the young man decides to go to New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and play for LSU. Interesting. That's all I'm going to say. Hasn't happened. The big nose tackle from Kent State, CJ West, he's still out there. I imagine, I know USC wants him. I kind of get the feeling now he's a backup plan. So what's going on? Where are the offensive tackles? Where are these big guys lining up to come to USC? There's still time. There's still a week to go. However, where are those? Where are the 100 guys? For everyone that wants to leave USC, there'll be 100 lining up that want to come. Really? I'm not clapping back on Coach Riley. I actually agree with his sentiment, but there's something getting lost in the translation. It's not working. They're not coming. They're not lining up. especially at those positions of need. All right, I'm going to be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow. That's what we do 5 times a week. If you like the show, you always do. That's why you're here. Become a subscriber if you haven't yet on YouTube. Click the red subscribe button, smash the thumbs up, hit that bell notification. That way you don't miss anything, because I'm bringing you everything you want to know. 30 minutes or less. Till the next episode, everyone, you know what to do.